Samuel the man of God.
Creep, 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 in the dark it comes to blow out all your lights.
This is a little town close to Jerusalem. And this is the man called Elkanah. This is his wife, Hannah. And this is his other wife, Peninnah. Peninnah had many children. But Hannah couldn't have children at all. And this broke her heart. What made it much worse, that was Peninnah often made jokes with her about it. She used to call him names and do all sorts of nasty stuff that broke her heart. Until one day, the whole family went to Jerusalem, to the temple, to go and worship God. Israelites in those days would go once a year to a certain feast. And during this time, Hannah went into the temple to desperately pray to God. She went down on her knees, and the Bible tells us she prayed so fervently that the priest Eli in the temple thought she was drunk. He came up to her and touched her on the shoulder and asked, "What is it? What's breaking your heart?" She told him how desperately she wanted children. And Eli promised her, "When you come back to the temple again, you would have had a son." And so they went back home, and she had a son. And when they came back to the temple a few years later, she made a promise that her son would serve God the rest of his life. His name was Samuel. From that day on, Samuel lived in the temple and served Eli and God. One night, while Samuel was sleeping, he heard a voice saying, "Samuel, Samuel." He stood up from his bed, grabbed a torch, and ran all the way to Eli's room. He thought it was Eli that called him. And coming to Eli, he woke him up and said, "Yes, here I am. What do you want?" But Eli said, "No, I didn't call you. Go back to bed." And so Samuel went back to his room and lied down again. But shortly afterwards, just as he fell asleep, he heard this voice again calling, "Samuel, Samuel." Again he got up from his bed and ran to Eli saying, "What do you want?" But Eli said, "No, go back to bed. I didn't call you." And a third time the voice came calling, "Samuel, Samuel." He stood up, walked all the way to Eli a third time that night. And it was then, when Samuel came to Eli, that Eli said to him, "It is God calling you. When he calls you again, just say, 'Yes, Lord, speak, your servant is listening.'" And so Samuel went back to bed and started waiting for this voice to call him again. It must have been quite an eerie feeling knowing God has spoken to you. But sure enough, when the voice called again saying, "Samuel, Samuel," young Samuel, still a little boy, went down on his knees and said, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." And it was then that God gave him a fearful revelation. He said, "Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, will die in one night, and so also will Eli." The next morning, Eli asked him about it. The thing was, Hophni and Phinehas disobeyed God and their father. They were rebellious. They did terrible things in the temple that we can't even speak about. A few days later, the word of God came true. Someone came running to Eli saying, "Your sons died in a battle. And not only have they died, but the enemies, the Philistines, have captured the ark of God and took it to a foreign country." Eli caught such a big fright that he fell off his chair and broke his neck. And so Hophni and Phinehas and Eli died in one day. And Samuel became the last judge and the first great prophet of God.